Hi, welcome to yet another preview video. This time I have the pleasure of presenting to you Micro Architects. Micro Architects is a game that comes from a company that so far has impressed me tremendously, and this is because they have put out some games with fairly simple rules but with a lot of fun strategy and gameplay, not to mention variability as well. The game comes with a lot of options, and this is a game about city planning. You are, as the title indicates, an architect, and you're trying to plan your city by populating it with specific type of buildings. There are 6 types of buildings, and you're trying to make specific patterns according to the 2 goals that are for each round out there, so that you can make the most out of your scoring at the end of each round. On top of the goals, players will score points for the services that they provide to the city. So for every essentially couple of buildings of one type, the more they have it, the more they can score it, and the earlier they get it in the game, the more rounds they can be able to score it down the road. But also for landmarks. Landmarks is something really nice because depending on where you place the landmark, you take the requirement or the, I would say, prerequisites for scoring tile, and depending on where you place it, you can score all the way from 0 up to 4 victory points. And this can potentially have synergy with the goals and with the service tiles, etc. So you have to balance all these things out, and this is just a core game. The game comes with also some additional modules like the residence module, which comes with an extension board, the events module, which adds some unpredictable events that come into effect and you need to deal with them. And overall, I would say that since I have already played another game which is Skyline Express and has a lot of similar ideas, it's a big box game from this publisher. Previously had the opportunity to preview it and also play the final copy, and it was fantastic production. This one is packing all this goodness in a small box, giving a bit of flavor of city building, which is really nice, giving some small perks like the bow tokens that you can expend them to do extra actions, gain more service tiles, or gain back action tokens so that you can make more actions, etc. And builds on top of this DNA to provide a small, compact, fairly simple but very interesting and highly satisfying city building game for 1 to 4 players. This is running on crowdfunding now. It's going to run on GameFound. I'm going to add a link in the description of this video so that you can follow up and find out more when the campaign launches, which is anytime soon now. But also to follow the campaign and see more details about the game. The game also offers a robust solo automa with an automa deck, which is always nice and welcome, and you can also enjoy playing versus a virtual opponent with their specific actions that they take from the automa deck and try to beat them on 4 different levels. But what I would say right at the top, that what this game, the impression of this game that it left me, is that it's very accessible. Everyone can play it. It's also very interesting. Even though it is very simple in rules, I think both gamers, experienced gamers and casual gamers will enjoy the game. It's very easy, compact. You can take it with you. It has, even from the prototype, as you can see, high production value. And if I take under consideration what I've seen so far from the previous games the company released, like Skyline Express and Microcosmos, which it's about to be fulfilled, and it was another fantastic game, micro game from this company. I really think that they're going to nail it again with this one, because it has very nice gameplay framework, very simple mechanics, a lot of different repeatability and replayability, because it's different because you play 6 out of 20 goals every time. On top of that, you score the landmark tiles. On top of that, you score the services. And on top of that, beyond going set collection, pattern building, and the actions that they can boost your performance, what you also can put into the mix is a resident module, which extends the game board and the options, but also the scoring, and not to mention the events module, which I'm really much looking forward to see this one. I didn't have a chance to try it on this prototype. So far, only good things I've seen from this publisher, so that's why I'm recommending it hands down. I think this is going to be for those who like and love city building games, compact games that pack a lot into a small box. I think you should look no further out and around. This is a game that you should definitely check it out, and I can show you from the explanation of the video if this is something you like or not. So join me at the table. I'll show you all the rules. I'll show you How the game plays, I'll break it down with timestamps for quick navigation if you want to just see a specific section of the video, but you can essentially use it as a rulebook replacement so that you can get a very good understanding of how the game plays. You don't have to have played the Skyline Express before or other games or Microcosmos, it's also completely different games. I'm explaining everything, so I'm going to show you a good idea of how the game works. And join me at the end of this video, as we do always, for a final wrap-up from my first impressions from the time I had with the game prototype and the sessions I had so far, and what a gaming experience it left with me. So let's see how the game plays first of all. Welcome to the exciting world of city building with architects. In this strategic board game, players take on the role of ambitious architects tasked with designing and constructing a thriving metropolis. Using their skills and knowledge, players will compete to create the most impressive city. Compete to towering skyscrapers, bustling neighborhoods, and essential infrastructure. With each turn, players must balance the resources and finances while navigating the complex landscape of urban development. But it's not just about building the most impressive city. No. Players must also contend with the needs of the citizens and their demands, who call for their city as a home. Will you focus on providing essential services like healthcare and education, or prioritize luxury amenities to attract the wealthy elite? With challenging gameplay, endless possibilities for strategy, and a wide array of customizable options, Architects is a perfect game for anyone who loves to build, design, and create. So gather your friends and family, sharpen your pencils, and get ready to build the city of your dreams. Welcome to this preview video for Micro Architects from This Troy. This is a game that is all about city building, but it has a lot of nice, interesting options, very easy rules, and very fascinating and engaging gameplay. I have already had the opportunity to try it and play it, and I really loved it. So let me guide you through the rules as we explain to you how you play the game, and then we can go into more details. Again, keep in mind that if any mistakes or something needs to be amended, check out for comments, but also you can quickly navigate from the timestamps from the description of this video for a quick jump according to the chapters. So first of all, let's familiarize ourselves with the components of the game. First of all, we have the Architects board, which is this board that you see in the middle of the table. We also have 4 city boards. These are prototype, of course, and you can see that these are made from wooden planks, but it's going to be, if I'm guessing correctly, recessed boards, which is really nice, because keep in mind that in these slots you're going to be placing various buildings, and you don't want them to bump around, so this is going to be really, really nice once this is finally produced. But and again, this is a prototype material, so keep in mind that everything is a prototype as you see fit. But having recessed board for this is, I think, a must, and I'm very happy to see this implemented in this prototype. So 4 city boards, which we're going to break down in a bit, 1 for each player. This game plays from 1 to 4 players and has a very nice solo as well. We also have 4 resident boards. This is an expansion, a module that you can play, and we're going to describe the rules for this at the end of this video, so you can quickly understand how you can add it to your game as well. We have 20 landscape tiles. These are the landscape tiles you have. They have different requirements, and once you build the landscape, you can score victory points at the scoring phase according to the requirements of the tile. These are 20. There are quite a few here for the stock, and there are 3 already here because we have set up the game already, and I'm going to explain how you select how many you add during setup. Then we have 120 building tokens. These are really nice. For the moment, these are 3D printed, of course. This is a prototype. I'm not sure if it's going to be plastic or wooden. In any case, they are very nice because they are cute and different, and these stand for different types of buildings. We're going to explain what each color and shape stands for. But for the purpose of pattern building, you just need to focus on the shape or color to differentiate from each other. These are really nice, and it's very nice that they're not vanilla, they're not the same. You can see that they have different shapes depending if it is, for example, shop or a landmark or industrial or offices or residential or municipal. So you can see all of these here. Again, this is part of the setup, but in total there are 120, and these are quite a few, and they give also very nice final look to the game once you populate your neighborhood and your city with those. Of course, you do that by trying to compete different goals and score as many victory points as possible, but I will come back to this at the next section of this video. We also have 20 resident tokens. These are these tokens here, and these again are used only when you play with the residence expansion module, okay? Which is a very nice and easy addition to add, but if you're playing just the core game, you don't use those. We have 24 action tokens. These are these colored wrenches for each player. Each player starts with 2. We're going to explain during setup, and at the end of the first round they're going to take 2 more, and at the end of the second round they're going to take 2 more so that they can have more. They're split in the player's color, okay? So for the moment you can see that these are green, red, blue and yellow. They don't have to match, they don't match the colors of the buildings, so I don't know if they're going to be the same. I'm suspecting that the colors are going to be different from the buildings, but this is a prototype, so I can imagine that for 3D printing purposes they use similar colors, but they have nothing to do with the colors. The colors of these buildings are different from the colors of the wrenches, which are the action markers of the players, okay? And you only use them to select an action. Then you have 44 bow tokens. These are these tokens here, which are quite nice, and they fit nice in the river of the city of the player. We're going to show you how this is done when it's populated later on, but it looks really nice. But it's not just an aesthetic addition, it has a function. Once you fill in a block with all 4 buildings, then you gain a boat, and you can use it for different things we're going to explain later. You also have 20 service cards. These are these cards here. Having 20 gives a flexibility and variability for the game, which is quite a lot. These are service cards, and you're going to have 2 at any given time open in the game. So you put them to the side like that. You also have 20 goals cards. These are these cards here with the back. These are the goals, and this is nice about the game. Look how many they are. There are 20, and you only need to have 6 for each game. So there is quite a variety of goals, and each game is going to be different depending on the goals that you're going to select. You select them by pairs. So for the first round we're going to score those 2, for the second round those 2, and for the third and last round those 2. And having 20 gives more than enough for variety, in my opinion, and that's always welcome. We also have the automa cards. These are 10 cards, and this is another nice thing about the game. It also has a solo, and it's not just a high score. You're playing versus an automa, which has an automa deck, and they can take actions, and this is really, really nice. Also simple to follow and implement with no maintenance. And the last thing, 4 scoring tokens. Those scoring tokens are going to be discs, from what I understand. My prototype copy didn't have scoring discs, but that's fine. Thankfully I have so many board games I can use something else. So basically these are tokens for tracking the victory points that go around the main board that you see around the edges of this architect's board. So there you have it. These are the components. Now let's make some insight on some of the aspects of those components. So first of all, let's see the architect's board and the area around it, which is prepared for the game. But basically we have different sections. First of all, you can have this section over here, which is the area where you have the buildings. These are the building plans. Architects present their building plans to the city planners, and each round you place a specific number of buildings here in rows, depending on the number of players, and you can find this based on the number of players and on the number of the rounds, so the first round, the second round, and the third round. So for example, for the third round, in a 4-player game, you're going to put 4 rows of 8 buildings drawing from the bag. These are going to be in a bag or from the box. Then you have the backup plans. You place 6 additional buildings in the backup plan area, which is this one. Okay, so these are the backup plans, and you can use actions for selecting instead of the top row from the backup plan area. We're going to explain these actions, how they work later on. Then you have the landmark requirements, where you place landmark requirement tiles, and this is the area on the right, so 1, 2, 3. The reason that there are 3, as you're going to see during setup, is because you count 1, plus 2, 3. So for the first row, how many landmarks, the black ones, plus in the backup, so 1, 2, 3. That means I'm going to put 3 specific tiles for the landmark requirements there. Then services. We always place 3 service tiles here, or cards. This is a deck, and it's 1, 2, 3 to the side. We also have action description and place for store action tokens. And this is over here, as you can see. I remind you that at the end of the first round, each player is going to take 2 more action tokens, and at the end of the second round, going into the third, they're going to take 2 more. Yeah. So these are placed here as a placeholder, but here also we have the action description listed there. This is the round. We also have the round summary. We also have the scoring track, which, as I said, is for the victory points players gain through the course of the game at the scoring phase of each round and at the end of the game. And last but not least, we have the city planning guidelines for placing goal tiles, which is over here. This is the deck of the goals, and we have 6 into 3 pairs, so 1, 2, 3 for each of the 3 rounds. Now, let's see the city block, the city board actually. The city board consists of 8 blocks, so this is 1 block, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in total. And if you focus closely, you can see that each of the blocks, so this is 1 block, it has 2 lots. 1 lot which has 2 lots actually by the river and 2 lots by the mountain. So this brown edge is considered a mountain. This is the river, and we have another mountain on the top. So again, this block has 4 lots. 2 of those are adjacent to the river, and 2 of those are adjacent to the mountain here. And each block has a specific color in it. You can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 of those are green. These are related to this icon. So a green block is this one, that one, that one, and that one. And you can also have blocks by the water, lots by the water, so you don't have the whole block by the water. So this block has 2 lots by the water and 2 lots by the mountain. You can also have the indication of the mountain. So if a requirement tile shows the mountain, this refers, for example, to those lots that they are adjacent to the mountain, so only those that I touch with the tip of the pencil, and on the other opposite side. Yeah, these are by the mountain. But the green one refers to the whole 4 on the edges of the board. Then you also have these ones, which are the ones that the residential ones, the gray ones, which have this icon, and these stand for this. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these icons indicate different areas on your city board. So for example, this one, we're going to explain how the landmarks work, but it says that it has to be by the river and on a gray area. So this could be only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for example. Okay, so that's a way to distinguish. Now, let's talk about the buildings. There are 120 buildings in 6 types, 20 each, and these are from left to right. We have the green, which stands for residential, the blue, which stands for offices, the red, which stands for industrial, the yellow, which stands for shops, purple for municipal, and black for landmarks. Landmarks specifically are special buildings with particular requirements regarding their placement in the city and vicinity to other buildings, and we're going to explain how these work with the requirements tiles later. But these are special buildings and have special and award victory points according to their requirements. Types of buildings are relevant while scoring for goals, landmark requirements, as well as services, which they're going to make more sense later on. Goal tiles. Goals are the main way of scoring points in microarchitects. Keep in mind that each of the game has 3 rounds, and in each round you have 2 goals which specify the required building arrangement for the given round. At the end of each round, players score points indicated on the right side of a tile for each block where buildings are placed according to the pattern shown on the goal tiles chosen for the given round. That means for the first round, for each of my blocks with this configuration, I'm going to score 5 victory points. And also for each of the block with this configuration, I'm going to score 6 victory points. And these 2 are going to be for round 1. For round 2 we're going to have those 2, and for round 3 we're going to have those 2. And keep in mind that all of those are very simple and the iconography is very simple, but they're going to make perfect sense because they're also described at the end of the rulebook, and each of those is explained in full detail how it scores. Landmark requirement tiles. These are these tiles that I showed you before. So each time a player picks a landmark token, I'm going to explain how this is done in full detail, but each time a player picks a landmark token, the black one, they also pick one of the available requirement preference tiles from the launch. They then place the landmark in a block and the chosen preference tile beside it. So if I were to place it in a block, I decide, and then I will pick one of the 3 preference tiles and I'm going to place it beside it. Okay, and keep in mind, because you can only have 4 landmarks in each block, the maximum, you can only have up to 4 preference tiles next to each block, respectively. From now on, this preference tile becomes a landmark goal. At the end of each round, scores points for fulfilling its conditions. The bottom part of the requirement tile, let's have a closer look, shows the bottom part here shows in specific how to score the landmark tile. You have the placement preference and you have the neighborhood preference. For the placement preference, the block color and its preferred lot, in this case, for example, a river or a forest, green. Okay. And if at the end of the round the landmark is placed according to both these preferences, the player scores 1 victory point for the landmark. So if I am to place this one on a green, but next to a water, so either here or here or here or here or here or here or here, you get the idea, this alone will give me 1 victory point. But then we have also the neighborhood preference. Types of neighboring buildings in the same block at the end of the round will receive 1 victory point for each building in either of the two types, so for blue and green. That means that if I have, let's say, only blue and green buildings here, I'm going to gain 1 victory point for each of those. So 1 for the correct placement and up to 1 for each matching neighborhood building. So the maximum I can get for one preference tile is 4 victory points if I do all of those, but I can get less, of course. The service tiles. Again, these are the service tiles that you see here. There are quite a few. And service tiles show additional services available for the buildings in your city. In order to acquire a service tile, a player must use 2 boat tokens. These are the boat tokens. I remind you, we're going to see how you get them. But and this is the icon of the service tile. And as a reminder, you have to use 2 boat tokens in order to gain 1 service tile. A player must use those 2, spend them in order to get 1 from the 3 available. On the left of the token, actually, or depending on how you see it, like that or like that, on one side, in any case, you can see the service as an illustration. For this example, it's a bus service, or it could be playgrounds, or a police station, or a park, or a basketball course, etc. This is an illustration. And on the other side, you see a victory point that you're going to gain every time we score at the scoring phase for each pair of those buildings that you have in your city. So for each pair of blue plus green, I will gain 2 victory points. So if I had 3 blue and 4 green, that means I have 3 pairs, I would gain 3 times 2, 6 victory points, for example. Yeah? And you can get those by spending primarily 2 boat tokens. Also, we have the action tokens. These are the action tokens. This is going to, every player starts with 2 action tokens next to their player board, and you're going to gain 2 more at the end of each round. Keep in mind that these are action tokens that you spend to perform those actions that we're going to explain later on during the action phase. But something important to remember is that regardless of the number of action tokens you have available, you can only spend up to 2 of them on each turn. So keep that in mind. As I said, we also have the boat tokens, which are these tokens here. Each time a player places a building on the last available lot on a given block, they receive 1 boat token, and they place it on the life buoy icon of that block. A boat can only receive a block can only receive 1 boat, so boats are used to acquire service tiles and retrieve previously used action tokens. We'll see how this happens. Used boats remain on the city board, but they moved to the left so that the life buoy is visible, and each unused boat provides an extra 2 victory points at the end of the game. So for example, when you let's say I placed 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings, and so when I populate the whole block, I'm gaining 1 boat, which I'm placing on the life buoy here. If I spend it, I move it to the right, and as you can see, each block can have an area for its lifeboat, and you need to have it populated by 4 full capacity, and then you gain the the boat, and if you spend it, you use it for primarily spending 2 to gain a service tile, or spending 1 lifeboat, as you can see here, at any moment to reclaim 2 of your action tokens back after each round. And last but not least, we have the scoring tokens. Scoring tokens are used for marking players' victory points and the scoring track after each round and at the end of the game. And the victory point track goes around the main board. So let's proceed to game setup. First, we place the architect's board in the middle of our table, and we shuffle all gold cards, these cards, and place 3 pairs above the architect's board. So first pair, second pair, and third pair of gold cards. We put the remaining cards back into the box. We don't need them. They're not going to be used for the rest of the game. We shuffle all service cards, these cards here, and place 3 face up, 1, 2, 3, to the left side of the architect's board, putting the remaining service cards to the side so they can be used to replenish once these are picked up. We put all building tokens or buildings in a bag. This prototype didn't come with a bag, but I assume they're going to maybe unlock on a stretch goal or something. We'll see, I don't know. Otherwise, you can use, of course, the box. It's quite big, so it will fit perfectly. But since the rulebook mentions the bag, I assume that there will be some kind of bag, or you can use one from another game. You will shuffle all the buildings in the bag, shake them well, and draw the proper number and place them in rows below the architect's board. For 2 players, you're going to place 2 rows. For 3 of 10 buildings each, so 10 and 10. For 3 players, you're going to place 3 rows of 9 buildings each. 1, 2, 3 of 9 buildings each row. And for 4 players, this is a 4-player setup, you're going to have 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, with 8 buildings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 buildings in each row respectively. And this you can also find as a reminder here for the first round. This is the number of rows and the number of buildings in each row. This will change on the second and third round accordingly in some of the player counts, and you'll have to follow these instructions for the next round. Then you draw 6 buildings from the bag and place them in the backup plan section on the architect's board. This is this section here where we have 6 buildings randomly drawn from the bag. We shuffle the requirement tiles. These are the requirement tiles. These are going to be face down on a stack, and you draw a number of landmark tiles, requirement tiles, as the number of landmarks in the first row. So in the first row, randomly have 1, 2, plus the landmarks in the backup area, 3. So I add how many black landmark buildings I have in the first row, in this case it was randomly 2, plus how many randomly I have in this backup area, So 1, so 2 plus 1, 3. That means I'm going to open face up 1, 2, 3 requirement tiles on the right side of the architect's board. Each player receives a city board and 2 action tokens. And then we put the remaining requirement tiles to the side to make a stack. We put also 4 action tokens for each player participating in the game in this area on the blueprint card. And I remind you, at the end of the first round, each player is going to take 2, and in the end of the second round, they're going to take the remaining 2 back into their pool. The first player token goes to the player who last held a hammer. And the last thing that we do is we take our scoring token and place it nearby the scoring track, which goes around the architect's board. Now we have set up the game and we're ready to start playing. Gameplay. The game is divided into 3 rounds, and each of those rounds has 3 phases. First, the action phase, second, the scoring phase, followed by third and last, the cleanup phase. Now, let's see the breakdown of each of those phases into more detail. Action phase. Beginning with the first player, all players perform their turns in clockwise order. On their turn, each player performs their following actions in any order. They must pick one building from the first row of the top non-empty row of the blueprint card and place it on a free lot in their city. They can perform up to 2 actions, discarding 1 action token for each of those actions performed, and discarding these action tokens to the boot office, 1 per action spent, and they can collect any number of service cards using 2 boat tokens, 2 of those, for each service card collected. And I remind you, you gain 1 of these boat tokens when you place the 4th and last building on a building block. So let's say it was like that, and during my turn I placed the last one in this building block here. Then I will take 1 boat and place it on this spot. When I spend it, I'm just going to slide it to the right so that I cannot take another one, of course, but then if I haven't spent it for either reclaiming action tokens or gaining service tiles, at the end of the game it will give me 2 victory points respectively. So as I said, you can collect any number of service cards using 2 boats for each of them that you collect from this area. So this is the action phase in a nutshell. Let's see some more details now. Picking buildings. Buildings are always chosen from those currently available in the top first non-empty row of the blueprint card. So in this case from this row. And the player can pick any available building in the row regardless of their order, either the first one, the last one, or anyone between, but they has to be from the top non-empty row. Also, after picking the building, a player must place it on a free lot in their city. So let's say I pick up this one, I would need to place it in a free lot in my city, according of course to what I'm trying to do, my strategy, the goals I'm after, my landmark requirement tiles, etc. But I have to do it on the same side, I cannot put it aside, I need to put it in 1 free lot in my city. Also, as I mentioned earlier, if I place the building in the last lot of a building block, in this case it was the last and 4th, I take 1 boat token from the supply and add it next to the block onto the specific icon, the lifebuoy icon of that block. So in this case I filled in this block, so I need to put it on this lifebuoy icon here, covering it, making it show that it is available and I haven't spent it. Because when I spend it, I slide it, and then that means that I am not gaining 2 victory points because I have already used it. here it's eligible for 2 victory points if I keep it until the end of the game. Each time a player picks a landmark, a black building, they also pick one of the available requirement tiles that they are on the side of the architect's board. They then place a landmark on a block, on a free lot, and the chosen requirement tile beside it. Each block can fit up to 4 landmarks, therefore there can be no more than 4 requirement tiles beside it. So let's say it's my turn as a second player. I'm picking a landmark, adding it, let's say here, here, and picking the requirement tile. I did it in a way so that it guarantees it will give me 1 victory point because it met the requirement for the block. It's one of those blue blocks next to a mountain because it's on the top row. Performing actions. At any point on their turn, either before picking a building or after, a player can perform up to 2 actions using 1 action token per action performed. So 1 of those, up to 2. Use tokens should be placed on the appropriate spot on the blueprint board. And the available actions are listed here, and you can see them. So we have first the overall, which is this one. This means that you swap 2 buildings of your choice in your city, and if you're swapping a landmark, you must also take one of the requirement tiles beside that block and place it beside the new block. So that's an option. Another option is this one, which is relocation. You move a building to any other available lot in your city. If this building is placed in the last available lot of a block, if there is no boat token beside it, you draw a boat token and place it on the lifebuoy icon of that block. This one is the backup plan. You swap a chosen building from your city with one of the available ones from the backup plans area, which is this one over here. So you switch one of those, which you prefer better, based on the pattern you're trying to build, from ones that you have in the city already. And this is the backup plan. If it is a landmark you choose from the backup plans area, you must pick one of the available requirement tiles that are on the side as well. And then you place it next to that block. If you're swapping a landmark with another building from the backup plans area, you remove one of the requirement tiles from beside the landmark block and put it back into the landmarks requirement section. So if I'm returning a landmark back here and picking something else, I'm also returning the requirement tile to the side as well. Then we have this one, which is the demanding residence. You draw 2 additional service cards and place them beside the buffet, face up. So you draw 2 more service cards and you place them next to the 3 ones available when you use this action. Yeah, this one. And you can now decide if you want to spend 2 boat tokens and pick one of the available 5 services, or just pass and then return the 2 that you didn't, the extra 2 that you didn't choose at the discard. The last one is this one. This is only used with the residence module. It will make more sense when I explain the residence module, but just since it's simple, you discard the resident token you just picked up and choose a resident token of any color from the box, and then you place it on the residential board. Keep a note, if a block has more than 1 landmark tiles, then when swapping the landmark from the block, you can move a requirement tile of your choice from the ones beside the block. So these are all the actions that you can perform. It's not mandatory to perform actions. You need to have available action tokens for each one. You can make a maximum of 2. Okay, so you cannot do more than 2. And you can either do it before or after picking a building during your turn. A maximum of 2 per turn. Acquiring services. At any moment on their turn, a player can use move to the left, revealing a lifebuoy, any 2 boat tokens in order to pick one of the available service cards that they are here. How you do that? Very simple. You need to have 2 boats available and you slide them. So you slide this one to show that you've used it, and you slide this one to show that you've used it. So using 2 lifeboats, as it's also indicated on the player board here, allows you to gain 1 service card at any time. Immediately you draw 1, you pick it up, and then you immediately throw another one so that there are always 3 available. So if I take one, I need to replenish so that there are always 3 available. After picking a service card, you place it beside your city board, and players cannot have 2 identical service cards, so they cannot have 2 of the same. If you're using the demanding residence action, which is this one, before choosing a card, a player can spend 1 action token and perform the demanding residence action in order to indicate to increase the number of available services by 2. If a player picks up one of the extra 2 service cards, they place the remaining one into the discard pile. If they pick one of the 3 basic service cards, they should also replace the chosen one with a new one from the draw pile, and also put the 2 extra service cards that they draw for themselves and they didn't pick back into the discard pile. Continuing the action phase. After the active player ends their turn, it's the next player's turn. Players perform their turns until they pick the last building from the current row. So one after the other, they're picking up buildings, performing their turns, and when this is done, when the row is finished, the top row always, then when that happens, we count how many landmarks there are in the next non-empty row from top. So in this case, it's 1. And the waiting area, 2 in this case, and place the proper number of requirement tiles to the right side of the architect's board, taking them from the top of the requirement tiles stack. Now the first player passes the first player token to the person sitting to their left, and players continue their turns, beginning with the player holding the first player token until the current row of buildings is empty. If this was the last row, you fill the requirement tiles once more, pass the first player token to the next person, and continue the action phase of the current round. If this is the last row, if there was still a row and this was not the last row, this is what happens. If this is the last row, then all the reserve has finished by finishing the last row, and then this means indicates the end of the action phase, and we proceed with the scoring phase, which is the third phase of the round. Scoring phase. Scoring phase has 3 steps. We score first for goals, second for landmarks, and third for services. The goals. In each round, there are 2 different patterns for scoring buildings in your city, as shown on the goal tiles for the given round. Let's say this was the end of the first round. We're going to score those 2 goals, the first pair. Each player scores victory points shown on the right side of the goal tile for every block where all buildings are placed according to the pattern shown on the left side of the goal tile. So for example, for every building block of 4 lots where I have this configuration, I will score 5 victory points. And the same will happen by every player. So every player has a chance to score those 2 goals, and they score it multiple times if they have this multiple times in their city. Keep in mind some icons. This gray icon stands for a building of any type. When it has a specific one, this stands, for example, for industrial or offices, exactly what it shows in this configuration. If it has this equal, the green equal icon, this symbol means all buildings must be of the same type. Those 3 gray ones can be either of the 6 different types, but they have to be all the same. You can even have 4 yellow and gain this goal, for example. And if it has, let me show you another goal, we didn't see it here. If it has this one, the red symbol, this means that this symbol means all buildings must be of different types. Okay, but all of these goals are explained in detail into the rulebook, so you don't have, even the iconography is very, very simple. You don't have to left yourself worrying on figuring out what's what. You can visit the rulebook. So, for example, for this goal card, I will gain 5 victory points for this block and another 5 victory points for this block, for a total of 5 plus 5, 10 victory points. Then we proceed to landmark scoring. Each player receives points for all the requirement tiles and score each tile separately. If a building is placed according to its placement preference, a player scores 1 VP for the requirement tile. Additionally, a player can score up to 3 victory points, 1 VP for each building in one of the 2 types indicated on the given requirement tile. This means that each requirement tile can grant a maximum of 4 victory points for fulfilling both preferences shown on the given tile. And keep in mind that one landmark matches only with one requirement tile, so you cannot score with one token, with two tokens, the same tile, etc. Only one. So, in this example, we can see that this player has placed the landmark here, but he hasn't placed it in a gray zone, he's placed it in a green zone, and even though it's next to the river, so it doesn't give 1 point for this one, and has no blue or green here, so he gets 0 points for this one during this phase. This configuration requires that the landmark is placed in the gray zone, which is indeed a gray zone, next to the river, it's indeed next to the river, and that way it gets 1 victory point. And if you have blue and red buildings, residential and offices, you gain 1 point for each. So here it's only blue and red, so he gains 1, 2, 3, plus 1 for a landmark because it met its requirements, 4. So this is the maximum that you can get. This one, for example, the landmark here is in a gray area next to the mountain. Okay, so it's not next to the river, it's next to the mountain, to the top, the brown. So it gets 1 victory point, but it has no green or blue. So it gets 0 points. Even if it had another color, it would still gain 0 points for the building, but 1 for the requirement which it matched. But let's say, for example, you had this configuration. In this case, you would only score 1 victory point for this one, but you will not score 1 victory point for that one because each landmark matches only 1 requirement tile. So make it so that the placement makes more sense and you score more victory points. Then we score the services. Each player receives points for all of their service tiles, and you score each tile separately, counting all pairs of buildings of types indicated on the given service tile. These buildings do not have to be based on the same block. They only have to be placed in the player's city, no matter where they're placed. The proximity does not matter. The player gains 2 victory points for each pair of buildings of the given types, and each building counts towards scoring multiple service tiles. So in this case, I have those 2 service tiles in this city. So for every pair of blue and green, I gain 2 victory points. I have 1, 2 green, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue. Even though I have 4 blue, only 2 pairs of green and blue. So 1 pair, second pair. So each of those was going to give me 2 points. So 2 points for this pair and 2 points for that pair. 2 plus 2, 4 from this service card. From this card, I only have 1 yellow and 1 purple, so I gain another 2 victory points for a total of 6 victory points altogether. Something very important, we're scoring now the first round, right? So you can keep building up pairs and then score again the service tiles with more pairs presumably, so this will give you more and more victory points down the road. Or if you haven't, let's say, fulfilled a requirement tile for a landmark, because this one gives 0 points because it needs to be on a gray zone and this is a green zone, at least you can put blue and green tokens next to this one, so they will give you 1, 2, 3 points maximum. The third and last phase in the round is the cleanup phase. After scoring in rounds 1 and 2, you perform the following actions. This phase is omitted at the end of round 3. You flip both goal cards for the current round of the game face down. So this was the end of the first round. I would flip this and that face down because they have been scored. Then the next thing that you do is you move to focusing on the next pair of goals for the next coming round. You take the buildings in the backup area, put them in the back, shuffle them and draw 6 new. Then you draw the proper number of buildings and place them below the architect's board here, like we did at the beginning of the game. So then we move to the current round. It's going to be the second round. So for 4 players, we're going to make 4 rows of 12 buildings for the second row. Remember, it was 4 rows of 8 buildings in the first round, 4 rows of 12 buildings in the second round, and 4 rows of 8 buildings in the third round. This is linked with the number of players. So if you're playing a 2-player game, you focus on the first tier instead of the last. Finally, you discard the remaining requirement tiles and place as many new requirement tiles as there are landmarks in both the first row and the building plans backup area. And if there are none there, no requirement tiles should be placed. Each player receives 2 action tokens from this reserve area into their pool. The first player passes the first player token to the person sitting to the left, and then you begin the next round with the player holding the first player token, and if this is the end of round 3, you skip the cleanup phase and you proceed to final scoring. Final scoring. The game ends after round 3, and apart from the points scored during the game, players score additional points for any unused boats they have on their player board. Keep in mind they need to be covering the lifebuoy token in order to be counting as active, otherwise it means that you have spent them. So for each unused boat you gain 2 victory points, and for each unused action token you have in your possession, because you didn't use it, you gain 1 action point as well. Oh, sorry, 1 victory point as well. So 2 victory points for each boat and 1 victory point for each action token not used. The player with the most victory points wins the game, and in case of a tie, the player with the least landmarks in their city wins the game, and if there's still a tie, the players share the victory. There will be also some scenarios introducing additional ways of scoring victory points, but I think we are to see this when it's revealed in the crowdfunding campaign. I have to mention here, I'm not going to cover the rules here, but they're very simple. The game comes with a very nice, interesting solo mode. It has an automa deck, as you can see, and the automa plays with a board and a virtual player, which actually is building their city, and each time you draw a card and you try to apply the first action. If you cannot, you go to the second one. If you cannot, you go to the third one. This is really nice because it simulates an actual opponent, and it does it very, very well. And it's always good to have good, robust solo modes, and this game comes with one. So, very robust solo game with the automa deck, trying to beat any of the levels. It comes with 4 different levels, as I said, easy, medium, hard, and extreme, and you can find out more on the rules in the rulebook about how to play the solo mode. Also, I should mention that all the tiled goals description is explained. All of these goals I'll explain in detail at the end of the rulebook. And the last thing that I want to mention is the residence module, which is a very interesting module. It comes with this resident board. So each player takes this resident board and they place it to the side of their city, like that. It's actually really nice because it gives a continuation of the river, which expands right and left, and then this is residence area. So let me show you again up close how the resident module looks. It has recessed board. Again, this is prototype, but it has an area for residence, a set of buildings. There are very simple rules. So what you do is during setup, when you set up the game, you set it up in the same way. You use also these resident tokens. Yeah, they come with this module. And during setup, beginning with the first building from the left of each row, you place a resident token of the corresponding color beside each other building on each row. So I will start with the first building. If it is, for example, red, I'm putting next to it together a red resident, then nothing, just for the next building, then a blue, then nothing for the next one, etc. So you, every other building, you match the same color resident, putting it for each of the rows. Each player takes one of the resident modules, attaches it to the right of their city board, and now players are also having access to this action, which I explained before, and it's only linked with the residence module. Very simple. When you pick up a building, you place it on your city like normal, like you do for the normal game, but you also take the resident token and place it beside your board in the resident area on any available space in one of the rows of the resident board. Each row of the residential board can store resident tokens of one color only. So let's say I start populating this row. I'm going to be placing, I can only place purple on the top row because I started using purple here. Okay, you decide which color you're going to populate in each row, but it can only fit one color. Something important, a landmark's resident token, black, can be used as any color, so it's always convenient. And in case a player can no longer add another resident, then they discard it. When a row is filled with 3 resident tokens of the same color, a player receives one of 2 bonuses: scores victory points if it's the first row, the second row, or 1 action token if it's the first row. So if you fill this row, you're going to take 1 action point. If you fill this row, you're going to take 3 victory points. Upon completing 2 adjacent rows, a player, so if I complete this and that, for example. The player gains one bow token, which places it on the life boy token, like they do with the filling the block the same way. And the standard rules apply. Now, this is very, very simple, okay? And what you can also do is you can also perform the extra action, where when you pick up a resident, you can discard it and pick up any other color if you spend one action token when doing this action. They are not supposed to be here action. This extra module, the residence module, can also be played with the automa solo, and there are some couple of clarifications in the rulebook for that. And this is everything you need to know on how to play micro architects from Destroy games. So there you have it. This is micro architects. Now, for who this game is a must? I believe players, gamers, who like simple games that play between 30 and 60 minutes, that they are compact, that they pack a lot of components and have a lot of mini components. I would immediately think the audience of Tiny Epic series, for example, would love this game because it offers a nice, full-fledged gameplay experience, because this could be easily a big box game if it had bigger opponents, that it's accessible because it can be played by anyone. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It plays fairly fast. It has very simple rules. It has a lot of modules and additions that you can add so that you can make it even bit deeper and even more engaging and rewarding in terms of victory points and things that you can score. But I would say the biggest success of this game, at least in its prototype form for me, is the fact that it will tick the box for all those who really like city building games. This is a city building game that it has very, very simple rules. Basically, you're driven by pattern recognition, by pattern building, so you're trying to build patterns as much as possible by making synergies between the different things that are requested from the different things that they provide victory points for you, the goals, the service tiles, and the landmark tiles, and balancing all these out efficiently looks or sounds like the job of an architect, of a city planner. That's what I would expect. I'm not a city planner by far. I'm a chemist by profession, but I would expect that it's a puzzle that you need to solve so that you can satisfy the arrangement, the requirements, the services, the needs, etc. of the city, which is an interesting puzzle. And for us, the gamers, I think it's a nice experience to have it on a compact game. So 2 thumbs up because it delivers exactly that: a light, fast, but highly engaging and satisfying city building experience. You can really put it very fast on the table. It looks like the prototype already is fantastic, so I'm expecting that the components are going to be top-notch like the rest of the games that they had so far, so I had no worry there. And on top of that, the fact that it offers a robust solo mode is a plus for me, because not only can be played all the way up to 4 players, it can be played very nicely solo versus an automa with its own automa deck, so you can compete versus 4 different levels. Simple, interesting, different every time, because the goals and the mixture of goals tiles and service tiles and landmark tiles are different. It has a lot of options because you're not restricted on a specific path. You have always you're always drafting buildings on your turn. You can always use your action tokens to try to make the best out of them and boost your actions and make the most out of your turn, so that you can score more victory points. It's a very easy to get behind game, but it offers a lot of fun, a lot of thinking, without overburning or overstaying its welcome, I would say. And in general terms, I think that city building fans, casual plus beyond casual gamers will really enjoy this. Solo players will enjoy this. Myself, I'm definitely looking forward to get this as a final production copy, so that I can go through the components, play it more, and also try the events module, which is something that I didn't see here, but I'm really looking forward to try this one as well, because they will spice things up even more. So, extremely interesting. If you're into compact games, you should definitely check it out. You should also definitely check out Microcosmos, which is the previous game from the publisher, coming out soon for fulfillment. And I just seen that they're planning, I just seen it on Board Game Geek, they're planning an expansion for this as well. So stay tuned for all the news from the company. I'm going to add a link in the description of the video so that you can follow up. For me, this is a keeper for a quick, fast, interesting, versatile, and robust city building game with a lot of fun and generally great gaming experience. So there you have it. This is Micro Architects.